And there are clear challenges facing our cities, and bringing smart city applications online may be a solution to some of those problems. But with so many different communications options, how should a city select the right communications technology? From TIA 2016 Network of the Future and from the Dell TIA NOW Studio, we'll look into some of the more popular smart city applications that's gaining traction in the market today. Here with us is Derrick Calderon, Vice President of Business Development at Ingenu. Also with us is Jennifer Sanders. She's co-founder and executive director at the Dallas Innovation Alliance. And welcome to the segment, guys.
Thank you
for having us.
Thanks for being here. I know you just did a similar segment not long ago, so that was sort of your practice run, and we'll do it one more time. But I want to start with Jennifer. I want to start with sort of a broad brush question is about what are some of the overarching challenges when bringing these smart city applications online?
Absolutely. Well, I think from a macro level for cities, part of it is the governance structure and who's going to own the running of these applications. And two is the financial modeling. So one of the big challenges, we kind of call it the holy grail among cities, is how do you create a sustainable financial model for these projects? So one, it's one thing to have the pilot, and then 2 years later, if you haven't developed that revenue, these new revenue models and generation, how are you going to ensure the sustainability of these into the future and really in perpetuity?
Derrick, anything to add as far as challenges?
No, I think some of the other challenges that you're seeing with some of these cities is being able to put forth the right technology for the right application. There are so many different technologies out there to bring a myriad of different applications, smart city applications to life. And so picking the right technology is another challenge.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit further, get a little more granular. What are some of those challenges when you do have these options as far as communications technologies?
So one of the challenges that we're seeing specifically with a lot of these cities that we're dealing with is which network technology is the right network technology. So you'll see some companies come in and say, hey, we'll give you this application, but in order to have this application, you're going to need to purchase our whole entire network infrastructure. And then you'll see somebody else coming in with another application, but you need to purchase this infrastructure. And so if a city wants to pick an application, they're either forced to tie and marry themselves to a given network technology for perpetuity. And so, one, their application may not be the greatest, and two, it may not be innovate further down the road because they're tied to that technology. So whereas we come in, we are owning the network, we are operating the network, and we're just enabling folks to use the network. And so it allows for multiple solution providers to build multiple solutions on one network. And so now a city has multiple options instead of marrying themselves just to one.
And I think to that point, that's why having the open platform is so important when we talk about open data and the ability for other companies and other startups and really city departments to build applications on top of that model. I think that's essential to success as well.
So Jennifer, you're the executive director and founder of the Dallas Innovation Alliance. I wanted to ask you about municipalities trying to justify these smart city projects. Are you finding that that's a real challenge?
Well, I think that cities in general are really coming around, and that's because the need is growing. So there's increased density coming into the urban core. We have aging infrastructure and really the same budget level, right? So in terms of finding both innovative financing models is a big piece of that, but I don't think the justification that this is something important that cities need to be thinking about and executing is really an issue anymore. We've seen enough cities incorporate successful projects. They've seen the efficiencies, so we've seen proof of concept happen. And I think that need is not something that's in dispute at this point.
And along those lines, so we're working with a partner who develops a water metering solution. And they're working with many of the different water districts, and the districts are saying, we need help so we can save money on sending truck rolls. And so if somebody doesn't pay their bill, now they have to send somebody out there to shut the water off. And when they go in and pay that bill, then they have to send somebody else to turn that water back on. Now it costs them $75 an hour to send somebody out to turn off the water and to turn it back on. But if the customer that didn't pay their bill only has a $20 water bill, the city has lost money. And so for examples, you can quickly find an ROI to help justify some of these applications in smart city projects.
And just to comment on top of that related to water, I mean, when we talk about smart meters in leak detection, also can be enormously efficient for the city in terms of if you know there's a leak, but you can pinpoint it exactly, you know exactly where you need to dig in to the sidewalk or the streets, as opposed to having to trench an entire block to try and figure out where that leak is. You're avoiding a lot of those repair costs as well.
Agreed.
Jennifer, I want to ask you both this question, but I'll start with Jennifer. Can you tell me, give me a couple of examples of some of the smart city applications that are really driving the market?
So I think the clearest one, and I think Derrick agrees with this, is the smart street lighting, because there's so many different ways that you can incorporate sensors and IoT inside the same module, if you will. So on top of LED lighting efficiencies, you can put crowd sensors, air quality sensors, noise detection, so a lot of cities are utilizing that from a public safety perspective. It also can be used in smart parking, so that's a revenue generator for the city as well. If you need less, if you have an alert system set up when someone's meter expires, when someone is parked illegally, or even to know what your space utilization is, then you can create demand pricing and things of that nature. So that's another revenue opportunity as well.
Yeah, and so along the smart city, the smart lighting, I believe it says once you move to LED lights, you save about 50% of the cost. If you move to controlled with LED, you save about 80% of the cost. And so just so some of these cost savings really justifies a lot of these applications, and that makes that application really one that's on the forefront of gaining traction in the market.
Ingenu, I want to start with maybe the latest project that you're working on as far as smart cities and the deployment of smart city applications.
So let's talk about, there's a couple of them we're involved in. There's one in a particular city that has our network already encompassed around the whole entire city. Now this city is working on metering of electricity, actually. Electricity or gas, one of the two, I can't remember. And so basically what has happened is now they have these smart meters, but they don't have the network infrastructure to speak to those quite yet. And so we're working with a third party that can actually speak to some of these smart meters already and collect, instead of doing one to the network, it's now, there's a collector in the middle that's collecting up to many different meters. And so it's saving the city a lot of money, because now they can already utilize a network that's already there. They don't have to buy another network technology, and now they don't have to pay a subscription cost to every single meter, because now there's a collector in the middle. So
over at the Dallas Innovation Alliance, is there something besides street lights that you're working on?
Absolutely. So we have several different areas that we're focused on. One of the interesting ones related to mobility is an end-to-end transit solution that's going to incorporate first mile and last mile, which is still one of the challenges I think cities are trying to face. For example, if public transit is your chosen solution or needed solution, but you don't have a car, how do you get yourself to that rail station? And similarly, once you get to your destination, do you use bike share? Is that a wise choice for you? Do you use Uber? Is walking the best choice for you? So there's a number of different ways, and smart parking is an element that of all of those pieces, smart parking is what we're going to have to build from scratch here in Dallas. There's some companies that utilize pieces of it, but what we want is an integrated framework where ideally citizens know where the parking is, so they're not circling. We know that 60% of congestion in urban areas is people literally looking for parking spots and circling. So the CO2 reduction is a big piece of that. Ideally, can you pay for your parking before you leave the house? You're guided directly to your space, and that citizen experience on top of all of the savings and revenue generation is greatly improved, which is the ultimate goal.
I always like to wrap these types of segments with sort of a futurist question. I think it really applies with smart city applications. Jennifer, I'll start with you again. What do you think we may be talking about, maybe not even a year from now, maybe 2-3 years from now in smart cities?
Well, I think the big thing we keep hearing about is autonomous vehicles, and how are they going to be successfully incorporated into infrastructure, and what is the safety and testing going to look like? So I've seen some cities that are undertaking streetscape design where they're planning for that phased approach, because they're already thinking about, when we have autonomous vehicles, we don't need a 6-lane road. So how do we start thinking about a phased approach to where we take lanes away, incorporate more bike lanes and more green space? So cities are already thinking about that, but to me that's what I'm hearing, and I think we'll be here sooner than we think, honestly. Yeah.
Derrick?
Yeah, as soon as smart cities really started to become a topic, everyone always said, we're going to be like the Jetsons, right?
Flying cars.
That's the goal,
next.
Right? And I would have to agree with Jennifer that autonomous vehicles is the next one on the horizon, where people are going to be talking about that more and more. So.
Well, it sounds like we could be talking about smart city applications for a long, long time, just sort of scratching the surface. So both of you, thanks for your time and being here, and hopefully we'll talk to you this time next year.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot. And thank you for joining us at TIA 2016 Network of the Future, again from the Dell TIA Now Studio. For more coverage, please visit tianow.org. So long.